The transport hub on Station Kepler 7 hummed with the movement of 100 species, each carrying the scent of different worlds. Riley walked through the crowd with practiced ease, her hand resting gently on the shoulder-height form beside her. To most observers, the creature looked like an oversized, feline, sleek silver fur, luminous amber eyes, and a build that suggested both grace and power. But Riley knew better. Apex were not pets. They were not even animals in the way most humans understood the word. They were partners, equals. And Grant was still young. Easy, Riley murmured, as Grant's ears swiveled toward a group of Vescari merchants, their chittering voices rising in animated haggling. The cub, though cub, felt inadequate for a being already massing 100 kilograms pressed closer to her leg, a low rumble building in his chest. Just sounds, Grant. Nothing threatening. The rumble subsided. Riley smiled despite herself. 6 months they'd been together now, since the Apex Council had approved her as one of the rare human liaisons. The Apex chose their companions carefully, and Grant had chosen her on some instinct she still didn't fully understand. Perhaps it was the calmness she'd shown when he'd first approached, his massive paws silent on the council chamber floor. Perhaps it was something deeper, some recognition that transcended species. The crowd parted ahead of them. It always did when people noticed Grant. Fear was a common response, though misplaced. The Apex were known across 70 systems as apex predators, yes, but also as beings of profound honor. They did not kill without cause. That knowledge did nothing to stop the Krath raiders. Riley saw them too late. 6 of them, emerging from a side passage, their exoskeletons clicking, mandibles spread wide. The transport hub's security was notoriously lax, and the Krath had grown bold in recent months, preying on isolated travelers. "Human," the lead Krath hissed, his translator device crackling. "Your credits, your cargo manifest. Now." Riley raised her hand slowly, her heart hammering. "I'm a diplomatic liaison. I don't carry." The second Krath moved faster than she expected, his bladed limb lashing out. Pain exploded across Riley's forearm as chitin cut through fabric and skin. She gasped, stumbling backward, blood welling bright and red against her pale skin. Grant saw. What happened next would be analyzed in security footage for weeks afterward, studied by xenobiologists and combat specialists alike. Replayed in slow motion to catch details the naked eye could not process. The apex cub moved like liquid violence. The first Krath died before his translator could register surprise. Grant's jaws closing around the raider's thorax, with a sound like splintering wood. The second reached for a plasma weapon but never cleared the holster. Grant's claws, each as long as a human finger, opened the Krath from shoulder to abdomen in a single swipe. "Grant, no. Stop." But Riley's voice was lost in the chaos. The cub was already on the third attacker, his silver fur now streaked with dark ichor. The apex were built for this, engineered by evolution, or something beyond it to be perfect hunters. Grant's species could track heat signatures, sense electrical impulses, process combat calculations faster than most computers. And they were fiercely, devastatingly protective. The fourth Krath tried to run. Grant's rear legs coiled and released, launching him across 6 meters of deck plating. The impact when he struck drove the raider into a support column hard enough to dent metal. The fifth Krath managed to fire his weapon a wild shot that melted a hole in the ceiling. Grant twisted midair, his spine bending in ways that defied human anatomy, and landed on the shooter's back. There was a wet crack. The sixth Krath, the leader, was scrambling backward, mandibles clicking in what might have been terror or prayer in his language. Grant stalked toward him, his amber eyes blazing, each paw leaving a bloody print on the deck. "Grant!" Riley's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with command, and something else, fear. Not for herself, but for him. "Grant! Stop!" The cub froze, his head swiveled toward her, those luminous eyes meeting hers across the carnage. For a heartbeat, Riley saw something ancient and terrible in that gaze. Something that reminded her the apex had been starfarers, when humans were still painting caves. Then it softened. Grant's ears folded back. He took one step toward her, then another, abandoning the surviving Kroth, who collapsed in a chittering heap. Riley sank to her knees, ignoring the pain in her arm, and Grant pressed against her. That deep rumble, returning but different now. Apologetic, seeking reassurance. "It's okay," she whispered, her fingers finding the soft fur behind his ears, even as her other arm dripped blood onto the deck. "It's okay, baby. You were protecting me." Security arrived 3 minutes later to find Riley sitting on the deck. Grant curled protectively around her while she applied pressure to her wound with a torn piece of her jacket. 5 dead Krath surrounded them. The 6th was unconscious, but alive. The station commander, a grizzled Thren with 3 cybernetic limbs, surveyed the scene with something between horror and awe. "Ambassador Riley," he rumbled, "your companion saved my life," Riley said firmly. She felt Grant's body tense beneath her hand, sensed his readiness to move again if needed. "They attacked first. He defended me. Check your footage." The commander nodded slowly. "The Krath Consortium will protest. Let them." Riley's voice was steady despite the adrenaline crash beginning to set in. "The Apex Council will want to hear about this, about how their juvenile partner responded to an unprovoked assault on his human." Juvenile? The commander's eyes widened as he looked at Grant again, seeing him anew. "That's a cub?" Riley managed a smile, painful and proud. The commander took a deliberate step backward. Medical arrived next, and Riley was treated while Grant refused to leave her side, his bulk creating interesting logistics problems in the small medical bay. The wound wasn't serious, 12 stitches, antibiotics, a mild painkiller she refused because she needed to stay alert. Later, in the diplomatic quarters, Riley sat on the edge of her bunk and looked at Grant, who watched her with those impossibly expressive eyes. "You can't do that every time I get hurt," she said softly. "You know that, right? We're going to walk dangerous paths. I'll bleed again. You have to trust me to handle things." Grant made a sound, not quite a growl, not quite a whine. I know it's hard." Riley reached out, and he pressed his massive head into her palm. "But we're partners, Grant. That means we protect each other." "Yes. But it also means we trust each other's judgment. Can you do that?" The cub was quiet for a long moment. Then he huffed the apex equivalent of a reluctant agreement and settled onto the floor beside her bunk, close enough that she could feel his warmth. Riley lay back, her arm throbbing despite the medication. She thought about the footage, about how quickly Grant had moved, about the efficiency of each strike. Apex cubs were formidable. Adult Apex were legendary, and Grant had chosen to stop. Had heard her voice through the rage and the instinct, and had stopped. That, Riley thought as sleep finally claimed her, was the real story. Not that an apex cub could shred 6 attackers in seconds. Anyone who knew the species would expect that. The story was that he'd stopped when she asked. That their bond had proven stronger than millennia of predatory instinct. Humanity had reached for the stars and found them full of wonders and terrors. But perhaps the greatest wonder was this: that a human and an apex could stand together, trust together, and find in each other something both species needed. Partnership, understanding, family. Outside the viewport, the stars turned in their ancient dance, and Grant's steady breathing matched the rhythm of Riley's heartbeat. Tomorrow there would be debriefings and diplomatic incidents, and probably more than a few nervous officials. But tonight, there was just a woman and her partner, both healing, both learning what it meant to bridge the gap between species. And that, perhaps, was the most human story of all.